Cut him down! Now!
Maya Chen's voice cracked as her hands fought the frozen wire biting into the Navy SEAL's ankle. Commander Ethan Cross hung upside down, his face purple, breath barely fogging the Wyoming air. Blood dripped from his temple onto snow that had already tried to bury him. Atlas, her German shepherd, pressed against her leg, whining, not at the dying man, but at the dispatch supervisor walking toward them through the trees. The woman everyone trusted. The woman whose scent was all over the trap. "Agent Chen," Lila Brennan called out, her voice warm as summer. "Thank God you found him in time." If this story grips your heart, subscribe and stay with us until the end. Comment your city below so we can see how far truth travels tonight. The wire snapped under Maya's blade, and Ethan dropped into her arms like a corpse learning to breathe again. His weight nearly took her down, but she'd spent 6 years in the FBI carrying things heavier than bodies. Secrets that broke families, evidence that ended lives, the weight of being too late. Not this time. Not today. "Stay with me," she said, lowering him onto the thermal blanket she'd spread across the snow. "Commander Cross, can you hear me?" His eyelids flickered. Lips moved. Nothing came out but a wheeze that sounded like a door closing. Atlas circled them both, his thick sable coat dusted white, his amber eyes locked on Lila Brennan as she approached with her medical kit and her perfect, concerned expression. The dog's body had gone stiff in that particular way that made Maya's stomach drop. The way he'd acted 6 months ago, when a seemingly friendly witness turned out to be wearing her missing husband's watch. "How bad is he?" Lila knelt across from Maya, her hands already reaching for Ethan's wrist to check his pulse. Atlas growled, low, certain. Lila froze. "What's wrong with your dog?" "I don't know yet." Maya's voice stayed level, but her hand moved to Atlas's collar. "He doesn't usually react to people he knows." "Well, he knows me." Lila's smile held, but something in her eyes shifted. "I've been feeding him treats at the station for 2 months." Maya filed that away. Atlas didn't forget kindness. He also didn't forget threat. And right now, every line of his body was screaming the word Maya had learned to trust more than any human testimony. Danger. "His pulse is thready," Lila said, her fingers still on Ethan's wrist. "Core temp is probably in the 80s. We need to get him to Cascade Medical now, or he's not going to make it." She was right. Maya hated that she was right. "Radio for the airlift," Maya said, "and tell them to bring warming protocols." Lila's hand went to her shoulder radio with practiced ease. "Dispatch, this is Supervisor Brennan. We have a critical hypothermia case at mile marker 47, Serpent Ridge Trail, requesting immediate medevac with thermal support. Adult male, late 40s, suspected concussion and exposure. ETA on bird?" The response crackled back. 17 minutes, Lila. Weather's fighting us." "Copy. We'll keep him stable." Lila released the radio and met Maya's eyes. "You saved his life, Agent Chen. If Atlas hadn't pulled you off the road, why was he out here?" Maya cut in. "Commander Cross guides wilderness retreats for veterans. His calendar showed him in town today, not on the trails." Lila's face stayed calm. Too calm. Maybe he changed his plans. Maybe he was scouting a new route. In a blizzard. People do strange things. Lila's hands moved efficiently, checking Ethan's pupils, examining the swelling around his ankle. Especially people carrying the kind of weight Ethan carries. Maya watched those hands. Steady, competent. The hands of someone who'd saved lives. Or the hands of someone who'd learned to perform saving while doing something else entirely. Ethan's eyes opened. Barely. His gaze found Maya's face, then slid past her to Lila, and something happened in his expression. A tightening, a flash of recognition that looked too much like fear. "Supply," he rasped. Supply clerk. Shh. Lila leaned closer, her voice dropping into that soothing register people use with the dying. Don't try to talk, Ethan. Save your strength. But Ethan's hand shot out and grabbed Maya's wrist. His grip was weak, but his fingers dug in with desperate intention. Blue uniform. They know. They... His eyes rolled back. His hand went slack. Ethan! Lila's voice rose, sharp and urgent. He's crashing. Chen, help me get him on his side. They moved together, rolling Ethan into recovery position as his body started to shake. Not the violent seizing of a fit, but the slow, horrible tremor of a system shutting down. Maya's hands worked on autopilot, clearing his airway, monitoring his breathing. But her mind was 3 words back. Blue uniform. Dispatch supervisors wore blue in Cascade Ridge. So did half the county staff. But Ethan hadn't been looking at the sky when he said it. He'd been looking straight at Lila. The helicopter arrived in a downdraft of snow and noise. Paramedics swarmed with the efficiency of people who did this in their sleep. Thermal wraps, IV lines, portable monitors that beeped their mechanical reassurance into the freezing air. They loaded Ethan onto the stretcher, strapped him down, and lifted him into the belly of the machine that would either save him or become his coffin at 4,000 feet. Maya watched it rise, rotors beating the sky into submission, and felt the familiar ache of unfinished business settle into her chest. You did everything you could, Lila said beside her. She'd stayed behind while the bird lifted off, her face soft with what looked like genuine compassion. He's a fighter. He'll pull through. How well do you know him? The question landed like a stone in still water. Lila's expression didn't change, but the pause before she answered was half a second too long. Well enough. Small town, you know. Ethan runs veteran retreats through the VFW. I coordinate emergency response. Our paths cross. She tilted her head. Why? Just trying to understand what happened here. What happened is a man went hiking in dangerous conditions and got hurt. Lila's voice stayed pleasant, but there was steel underneath now. Unless you think it's something else? Maya met her eyes. I think a decorated Navy SEAL doesn't accidentally walk into a snare trap set at ankle height on a trail he knows by heart. Silence. The wind filled it, howling through the pines like a living thing with opinions. Lila's radio crackled. Supervisor Brennan, we've got a multi-vehicle on Highway 14, requesting your coordination. Copy, en route. Lila's hand went to the radio, then paused. She looked at Maya with an expression that could have been concern or could have been calculation. Be careful up here, Agent Chen. These mountains don't forgive mistakes. She walked away, boots crunching through snow, her figure disappearing into the white like a ghost who'd never been there at all. Atlas sat. He didn't take his eyes off the spot where she'd vanished. Yeah, Maya said softly, her hand dropping to his head. I don't trust her either. She pulled out her phone and called the one person who'd answer on the first ring. Derek Park, Digital Forensics. Tell me you've got something good. I've got something, Maya said. I'm not sure if it's good. I need you to run a full background on Lila Brennan, Cascade Ridge Dispatch Supervisor. Employment history, financials, family connections. And I need it quiet. Quiet's my specialty. Derek's voice carried that caffeinated edge of someone who lived in server rooms and thought sleep was optional. What am I looking for? Anything that connects her to Ironclad Solutions. The veteran charity? The veteran fraud. Maya crouched in the snow where Ethan had fallen and started examining the ground with her flashlight. I think someone tried to kill a witness today, and I think the person who called in the rescue might be the same person who set the trap. Derek went quiet. When he spoke again, the humor was gone. How fast do you need this? Yesterday. Give me 2 hours. The call ended. Maya stayed crouched, her light playing across the disturbed snow, the broken branches, the faint marks where the wire had been anchored to the tree. Professional work, not a hunter's snare. This had been designed for a specific target, set at a specific height, placed on a trail that Ethan Cross would recognize as safe until the second the wire caught his ankle and yanked him into the air. She found it 30 feet from the trap. A boot print, partial, half filled with fresh snow. But the tread was clear enough. Standard issue county emergency response. The kind Lila Brennan wore. Maya photographed it from 6 angles, documented the location on her GPS, and felt the case shift in her hands from fraud investigation to something that could end with more bodies hanging in these woods. Her phone buzzed, a text from the hospital. Cross stable, conscious, asking for you. Atlas was already moving toward the trail before she gave the command. The hospital in Cascade Ridge was the kind of place that survived on stubbornness and duct tape. 1 trauma bay, 2 ambulances, a staff that knew every patient by name because there were only 4,000 people in the county, and half of them were related. Maya walked in smelling like pine and cold, Atlas at her heel, drawing stares from the waiting room. A woman with a baby, an old man with a cough, a teenager holding a bloody towel to his hand. They watched her badge, watched the dog, and went back to their private emergencies. Dr. Sarah Delacroix met her at the trauma bay doors. She was 40-something, with dark hair pulled back in a clip that had given up hours ago, and the kind of face that had seen too much suffering to waste time on pleasantries. "He's stable," she said, her voice carrying the flat exhaustion of a double shift. "Core temp is back to 94, no permanent damage to the extremities." Fractured ribs, concussion, severe bruising consistent with suspension trauma. He's lucky you found him when you did. Another hour and we'd be having a different conversation. "Can I see him?" Dr. Delacroix's eyes narrowed. "Can I ask why the FBI is involved in a hiking accident?" "That depends on whether it was an accident." The doctor's expression didn't change, but something in her posture shifted. A straightening, a squaring of shoulders that said she'd spent time in uniform before she'd spent time in scrubs. "Room 3, she said. "Don't tire him out. And if he tells you anything that makes you think he's in danger, you tell me. I don't care what your badge says. He's my patient first." Fair enough. Ethan Cross looked smaller in the hospital bed than he had hanging in the trees. The IV lines and monitors gave him the appearance of a man tethered to life by wires and luck. His face was still pale, still marked by the purple blooming bruise across his temple, but his eyes were open, clear, focused on the ceiling like he was reading something written there in a language only he understood. "Commander Cross?" Maya said softly. His head turned. For a moment, he just looked at her, studied her the way soldiers study terrain, looking for cover, looking for threat, looking for the angle they'd missed. "You're the one who cut me down." "Agent Maya Chen, FBI. And yes." "Then I owe you my life." His voice was rough, scraped raw by cold and fear. "Which means I'm going to tell you the truth, and you're going to think I'm paranoid or crazy or both." Maya pulled a chair close to the bed. Atlas settled at her feet, his gaze still on the door like he expected company they didn't want. "Try me." Ethan's hand moved under the blanket. When it emerged, he was holding something small. A micro USB drive sealed in a plastic medical specimen bag. "This was in my boot," he said, "inside the sole. I put it there 3 days ago after I realized someone was following me." Maya took it carefully, her fingers closing around the small weight of it. "What's on it?" "Everything." Ethan's eyes closed for a second, like the word cost him something. Transaction records, email threads, voice recordings. 18 months of evidence showing that Ironclad Solutions isn't a charity helping veterans. It's a machine designed to rob them blind. Who's running it? That's the part that's going to be hard to believe. Ethan's jaw tightened. Because the man behind it is Colonel Marcus Webb. And in this town, Marcus Webb is a goddamn saint. The name landed in Maya's chest like a fist. She knew it. Everyone in veteran advocacy knew it. Colonel Marcus Webb, retired Marine Logistics Officer, founder of Ironclad Solutions, recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom for his work supporting Gold Star families. The man had been profiled in Time magazine. He'd testified before Congress. He'd stood next to 3 presidents at memorial ceremonies. You're telling me Marcus Webb is stealing from the people he claims to help? I'm telling you Marcus Webb is a thief hiding behind a uniform and a flag. Ethan's voice shook, not with fear, but with rage held on a leash. His son died by suicide 4 years ago after the VA denied his disability claim 3 times. Webb snapped, decided the system was broken, decided the people running it were parasites, and decided he'd punish everyone by taking their money and watching them suffer the way his boy suffered. That's insane? Yeah, it is. Ethan laughed, a sound like breaking glass. But it's also true. I've been tracking donations for over a year. Widows sending their savings, disabled vets giving up their settlements, families cashing out life insurance to cover funeral costs Webb promised to handle. None of it goes where it's supposed to. It all filters through shell companies, gets converted to crypto, and disappears. Maya's hand tightened on the USB drive. Why didn't you go to the police? Because I don't know who I can trust. Ethan's eyes locked on hers. Someone leaked my investigation. Someone told Webb I was getting close. And someone set that trap knowing exactly where I'd be, exactly when I'd be there, and exactly how long the storm would keep search teams grounded. Who knew your schedule? 3 people. My mentor, Hank Morales at the VFW, Dr. Delacroix, because I told her I was feeling paranoid and wanted someone to know where I'd be, and Lila Brennan, because I requested emergency contact protocols for the retreat I was supposed to be leading this weekend. Silence. The monitors beeped their steady rhythm. Atlas's ears swiveled toward the hallway, tracking movement Maya couldn't see yet. Lila was the first responder who showed up when I called in your location, Maya said slowly. Eaton's face went cold. Then you need to be very careful, Agent Chen. Because if Lila's dirty, she's got access to every emergency channel in this county. She knows where every federal agent is. She knows when you're alone. And she sure as hell knows you're here right now. The door opened. Lila Brennan stood in the frame, her blue uniform crisp, her face arranged in professional concern. In her hands, she carried a clipboard and a visitor's log that didn't need to be delivered in person. Agent Chen, she said pleasantly, didn't expect to see you still here. I thought you'd want to get warm after that rescue. Atlas rose. His body moved between Maya and the door with the smooth certainty of a living shield. Just checking on Commander Cross, Maya said, her voice neutral. Making sure he's stable. That's kind of you. Lila's eyes moved to Ethan, and for just a second, less than a heartbeat, her expression flickered. Not concern. Not relief. Something sharper. Something that looked like assessment. How are you feeling, Ethan? Like I got strung up and left to freeze. His voice was flat. But I'll live. Thanks for asking. Good. That's good. Lila's fingers tapped the clipboard. I'll need to file an incident report, standard procedure for emergency rescues. Can you walk me through what happened? What you were doing on Serpent Ridge in a blizzard? Scouting, Ethan said, too quickly. New trail for the spring retreats. Alone? I work alone. even in storm conditions? Especially then. Teaches me what the terrain does under stress. Lila nodded slowly, writing something down. And the snare? You have any idea who might have set it? Poachers, maybe. Could have been there for weeks. Could have been. Lila's pen paused. Except the wire was new, and the placement was fresh, and the anchor knots were military grade. The room went very quiet. Maya watched Ethan's face, watched Lila's hands, watched Atlas's body language shift from alert to something that looked like a dog deciding whether to bite. I wouldn't know about that, Ethan said finally. I just know it caught me, and I'm grateful Agent Chen's dog found me before I died. Lila's smile returned. Well, we're all grateful for that. Small towns need their heroes. She closed the clipboard. I'll let you rest. Agent Chen, could I have a word outside? It wasn't a request. Maya followed her into the hallway, leaving Atlas with Ethan, a decision that made her skin crawl, but her instincts approve. If something happened, the dog would raise hell. Lila walked 10 feet, then turned. Her face was still pleasant, but her voice had lost the warmth. I need to know what you're really doing here. Investigating financial fraud targeting elderly veterans. In my county. In every county. Maya held her ground. Ironclad Solutions has victims in 17 states. We're following the money. And you think Ethan's accident is connected? I think Ethan's accident is suspicious, and I think you asking detailed questions about military knots is interesting. Lila's jaw tightened. I'm doing my job, which is keeping this town safe. That includes knowing when federal agents are running operations without coordinating with local emergency services. Do you know what happens when your investigation goes loud? When you spook the wrong people? I'm the one who has to clean up the bodies. Then help me make sure there aren't any. I am helping. Lila stepped closer, and for the first time Maya saw something raw in her eyes, something that looked like fear. By telling you to be careful. By telling you that this town has undercurrents you don't understand. And by telling you that if you push too hard in the wrong direction, people who don't deserve to get hurt will end up in my morgue. Is that a threat? It's a fact. Lila's hand went to her radio as it crackled with another call. She listened, responded with clipped efficiency, then looked back at Maya. I have to go. Multi-vehicle on the pass. But, Agent Chen, whatever you think you know about Lila Brennan, you don't know the whole story. And if you're smart, you won't assume you do. She walked away, leaving Maya in the fluorescent hallway with a USB drive burning a hole in her pocket, and a truth she couldn't prove yet pressing against her ribs like a broken bone. Her phone buzzed. Derek. Found something. Call me. Now. She stepped into an empty consultation room and dialed. Tell me, she said. Lila Brennan's clean, Derek said. Too clean. No debt, no vices, no financial red flags. But her son. Maya's breath stopped. Lance Corporal Jake Brennan, USMC, deployed to Syria 3 months ago. And guess who's handling his family support benefits? Ironclad Solutions. Bingo. And here's the kicker. 2 weeks ago, Jake's unit reported a credible threat against family members of deployed Marines. Someone leaked personnel files. Someone with access to emergency databases and real-time location tracking. Maya closed her eyes. She's not dirty. She's being blackmailed. That'd be my guess, which means she's dangerous in a different way. She's not choosing Webb. She's choosing her son. Where's Webb now? That's the bad news. He left town this morning. Private airfield, filed a flight plan to Denver, but the plane never landed. He's in the wind. Maya's hand tightened on the phone. He knows we're close. He knows someone's close, and if Lila's feeding him information... A crash from Ethan's room, Atlas barking, voices shouting. Maya ran. She hit the trauma bay at full speed, gun clearing her holster on instinct, and found chaos. Ethan was on the floor, IV ripped free, blood streaming from his arm.
Doctor!
Delacroix was pinning him down, trying to keep him from tearing out the rest of his lines. Atlas stood over both of them, barking at the window that was open, cold air pouring in, curtains whipping in the wind.
He tried to go through it, Dr. Delacroix gasped. Started screaming about someone in the room. I didn't see anyone, but he was convinced.
Maya moved to the window, looked out, saw nothing but parking lot and snow, but in the snow, fresh prints, boot prints, leading away from the building. She keyed her radio.
This is Agent Chen. I need security to lock down the hospital, now. Possible intruder.
Ethan was still struggling, his eyes wild.
He was here. Webb was here. He looked right at me and smiled. Said... His voice cracked. Said he was sorry it had to be this way. Said I should have minded my own business. You're safe, Maya said, crouching beside him. I'm not leaving you. You don't understand.
Ethan grabbed her wrist with bloody fingers. He wasn't here to kill me. He was here to see if I'd already talked. And now he knows I did. Atlas's bark changed pitch. Warning. Maya's radio crackled.
Agent Chen, this is hospital security. We found something. North stairwell. You're going to want to see this.
She left Dr. Delacroix with Ethan and took the stairs 2 at a time, Atlas leading. The north stairwell was cold, emergency exit propped open, snow drifting across the concrete. And on the wall, written in black marker in neat block letters, Maya Chen, FBI, grandfather, suicide by scam. You should understand why this matters. Her blood turned to ice. They didn't just know she was investigating. They knew why. Maya's hand traced the words on the stairwell wall, her fingers stopping just short of touching the ink. The marker was still wet. Whoever wrote this had been here seconds ago, maybe was still in the building, watching her read the message they'd left like a gift wrapped in barbed wire. Atlas pressed against her leg, his body vibrating with tension that said he wanted to chase something his nose had already identified, but his training wouldn't let him pursue without her command. Track, she whispered. The dog exploded into motion, nose to the ground, pulling her down the stairwell so fast she nearly lost her footing on the slick concrete. They burst through the emergency exit into the parking lot, where the snow had started falling again, thick and fast, already filling in the boot prints she'd seen from Ethan's window. Atlas stopped at the edge of the lot, whining in frustration. The scent trail ended at tire marks, fresh enough that exhaust still hung in the air like a ghost refusing to dissipate. Maya's radio crackled. Derek's voice, urgent and stripped of its usual humor. Chen, I've got movement on Webb's credit cards. Gas station purchased 20 minutes ago, 40 miles south on Route 191. He's running, but he's not running smart. Or he wants us to follow, Maya said, her eyes still on those tire marks. Send me the coordinates. And Derek, I need you to pull every security feed from this hospital for the last hour. Someone was in Ethan's room. Someone who knew exactly what they were doing. On it. But, Maya, there's something else. I found a connection between Lila Brennan and Webb that predates Ironclad. Her son's unit, the one deployed to Syria, Webb was the logistics coordinator who processed their deployment orders. He had access to every family contact, every emergency protocol, every piece of personal data the Corps collected. Maya's throat tightened. He's been building leverage for months. Years, maybe. This isn't opportunistic. It's systematic. She ended the call and looked down at Atlas, whose amber eyes were fixed on the vanishing point where the tire marks disappeared into the storm. "We're not chasing him yet," she said, more to herself than the dog. "First we find out who he's got on the inside." Back in the hospital, she found Dr. Delacroix standing outside Ethan's room, with her arms crossed and her face set in that expression medical professionals wear when they're about to tell you something you don't want to hear. "He's sedated," the doctor said before Maya could ask. "Mild sedative, just enough to keep him from tearing himself apart. Whatever he saw, or thought he saw, triggered a full panic response. His heart rate spiked to 140. That's not safe for someone in his condition." "Did he say anything else?" "He kept repeating the same thing. Check the VFW. Check Hank." Then he grabbed my hand and said, "Tell her Hank's phone is wrong." Dr. Delacroix's expression softened slightly. "Does that mean anything to you?" Maya's mind raced. Hank Morales, Ethan's mentor, the man who ran the local Veterans of Foreign Wars Hall and had been Ethan's emergency contact for over a decade, the man Ethan had trusted enough to tell about his investigation. "It means I need to make a call," Maya said. "Can you keep him here? Under observation?" "I can keep him until morning. After that, if he's medically stable, I can't hold him against his will." "Then make sure he's not medically stable until I say otherwise." Dr. Delacroix's eyebrows rose. "That's not how medicine works, Agent Chen." "It is if you think he's still in danger." The doctor studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I think he's still in danger. I'll make it work." Maya walked outside to make the call where hospital walls couldn't listen. The wind cut through her jacket like it had a personal grudge, and her breath came out in white clouds that disappeared before they could mean anything. Hank Morales answered on the third ring, his voice rough with age and cigarettes and the particular weariness of a man who'd buried too many friends. "Agent Chen, didn't expect to hear from you at this hour." "Mr. Morales, I need to ask you about Ethan Cross." A pause, the sound of a door closing in the background. "What about him?" "When was the last time you spoke to him?" 3 days ago. He came by the VFW, said he was heading up to scout trails, asked if I'd keep an eye on his place while he was gone." Another pause, longer this time. "Why? Did something happen?" Maya made a decision. "He's in the hospital. Someone set a trap for him on Serpent Ridge. He nearly died." The silence that followed was the kind that happens when information rewrites reality. When Hank spoke again, his voice had lost 20 years and gained the hard edge of a man who'd carried a rifle in places where the wrong word could get you killed. "Who did it?" "That's what I'm trying to find out. Ethan mentioned your name before he was sedated. Said something about your phone being wrong." "My phone?" Confusion now, genuine and unguarded. "I don't understand. Have you noticed anything unusual? Calls from numbers you don't recognize? Messages that seem off?" "No, Hank stopped. "Wait. Last week, I got a text from what I thought was Ethan's number. Asked me to confirm some dates for the spring retreat schedule. I responded with the full calendar, told him I'd have the VFW ready for planning sessions. But when I saw him in person, he didn't mention it." Maya's pulse quickened. "Do you still have that text thread?" "Should be on my phone. Hold on." The sound of fumbling, of an older man navigating technology that hadn't existed when he was young. "Here. Text came in from a number with Ethan's area code, but now that I'm looking at it, it's 1 digit off from his actual number." "Someone spoofed his contact to get information from you." "Son of a bitch." Hank's voice dropped to something dangerous. "They used me to track him."
It's not your fault, Mr. Morales. They're professionals.
Professionals or not, they hurt one of mine.
What do you need from me?
I need you to act normal. Go about your routine. If anyone contacts you asking about the FBI presence in town, you tell them exactly what you'd tell any concerned citizen. That there's an investigation, that you don't know the details, that you trust law enforcement to handle it.
You want me to be bait?
I want you to be eyes and ears. These people are watching, Mr. Morales. They're listening, and they're scared, which makes them sloppy. Scared people make mistakes.
And when they make a mistake, you'll be there.
I'll be there. She ended the call and found Derek had already sent the hospital security footage to her phone. She pulled it up, scrubbing through the timestamp that matched Ethan's panic attack. There, a figure in scrubs, face obscured by a surgical mask and cap, entering Ethan's room. They moved with the easy confidence of someone who belonged, checked a non-existent chart at the foot of his bed, then leaned close to Ethan's ear.
5 seconds. 10.
The figure straightened, walked out, and disappeared into a supply closet. Maya tracked the timeline forward. The same figure emerged 3 minutes later in street clothes, walked calmly to the north stairwell, and vanished from camera range. She zoomed in on the one clear frame where the person's sleeve had written up, exposing their wrist. A tattoo. Small, precise. The eagle, globe, and anchor of the United States Marine Corps, with a date beneath it that she couldn't quite make out. She sent the image to Derek with a single word: enhance. His response came back in 90 seconds. The date was legible now, and with it came a name from the military database Derek had accessed with the kind of warrant-bending creativity that made prosecutors nervous and criminals terrified. The tattoo commemorated a deployment date. The unit matched, and the name attached to that particular ink, that particular service record, was someone Maya had never heard of until this moment. Captain Ryan Sloan, former Marine intelligence officer, medically discharged 4 years ago after a training accident left him with chronic pain and a prescription opioid dependency that had spiraled into the kind of addiction that ended careers and destroyed families. The discharge date was 6 months before Marcus Webb's son had died. Derek's follow-up message appeared before she could process the first one. Sloan worked under Webb in the logistics division. They were close. After Sloan's discharge, he disappeared from all official records. No known address, no employment history, no credit footprint. But I found something in the dark. Cryptocurrency wallet tied to an email address Sloan used before he went ghost. That wallet has been receiving regular transfers from Ironclad Solutions for 3 years. Maya's hands went cold in a way that had nothing to do with the weather. Webb hadn't just built a fraud machine. He'd built a network of broken people who owed him loyalty. People with skills. People with access. People who'd lost everything to the same system he claimed to be punishing. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but instinct made her swipe. Agent Chen? The voice was male, calm, with the kind of control that comes from practice. My name is Ryan Sloan. You're looking for me, so I thought I'd save you the trouble. Maya's breath caught. Atlas's ears swiveled toward the phone, as if he could smell the danger through the speaker.
Where are you?
Close enough to watch you standing in the snow. Far enough that your dog can't reach me before I'm gone. A pause. I was in Commander Cross's room 20 minutes ago. I told him something I'm going to tell you now, because I think you deserve to know what you're walking into.
I'm listening.
Colonel Webb isn't the monster you think he is. He's not stealing from veterans because he's greedy. He's stealing from them because he believes they've already been robbed by a government that sent them to war, broke them, and then threw them away like trash. His son, Michael, died alone in a studio apartment with a bottle of pills and a denial letter from the VA in his hand.
Webb found him 3 days after he'd stopped breathing. Maya's throat tightened, but she kept her voice steady.
That doesn't justify what he's doing.
No, it doesn't, but it explains it. And explanation matters when you're deciding how to stop someone. Sloane's voice shifted, something harder entering it. You've got 2 choices, Agent Chen. You can go after Webb with everything you've got, burn down Ironclad, arrest everyone involved, and watch the headlines celebrate your victory.
Or you can ask yourself what happens to the people who actually need help when the only organization serving them gets destroyed. Ironclad isn't helping anyone. It's stealing from them. It's doing both. Sloane's words landed like stones. Look at the data on that USB drive Ethan gave you. Really look at it. Yes, Webb's siphoning money into crypto wallets. Yes, he's building a fortune on the backs of vulnerable people. But he's also paying out. Medical bills for veterans the VA rejected. Funeral costs for families who couldn't afford to bury their dead. Rent for widows 3 months behind. It's not all going into his pocket, Agent Chen. Some of it's going exactly where he promised it would. Maya's mind reeled. That's not possible. The numbers work if you understand what you're looking at. Webb's not just a thief. He's Robin Hood with a service record and a dead son.
He takes from veterans who can afford it, or thinks they can, and gives to veterans who can't. It's still fraud. It's still illegal. But it's not simple. Who are you, Sloane? Why are you telling me this? Because I owe Webb my life, and I owe you the truth. And because I'm hoping there's a version of this that doesn't end with him dying in a shootout or spending the rest of his life in a cell. Sloane's voice dropped. He's at the VFW right now, Agent Chen, talking to Hank Morales, trying to convince him to disappear before you connect all the dots. You've got maybe an hour before he runs for good. The line went dead. Maya stood in the snow, her phone still pressed to her ear, her mind racing through possibilities that all felt like traps. If she moved now, she could catch Webb, but she'd be walking into a confrontation without backup, without full information, without knowing who else might be waiting. If she waited, Webb would vanish and the case would go cold. Atlas whined, his nose pointing toward the road that led out of town, toward the VFW hall, where men who'd served their country gathered to remember wars that never stopped echoing. Maya made her choice. She called Derek. I need you to contact the field office. Tell them I'm pursuing a suspect at the Cascade Ridge VFW. I need backup, but I need it quiet. No sirens, no lights, no cavalry charge that spooks him into doing something stupid. How long do I tell them to wait before they come in? 30 minutes. If I'm not out by then, they come in hard. Maya, I know what it is. Do it anyway. She drove with Atlas in the passenger seat, his eyes fixed on the road ahead like he could see the future unfolding in the headlights. The VFW hall sat on the edge of town, a low building with peeling paint and a flag that flew even in blizzards because the men who gathered there believed some things mattered more than comfort. 2 cars in the lot, Hank's truck, old and reliable, and a sedan Maya didn't recognize, rental plates, the kind of anonymous vehicle people used when they didn't want to be tracked. She parked 50 yards out and approached on foot, Atlas at her heel, every sense alert for the moment when quiet turned to chaos. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the hall smelled like coffee and old wood, and the particular sadness of a place built for brotherhood that had watched too many brothers die. Voices from the back room, low, urgent, the rhythm of an argument that hadn't turned violent yet, but was considering it. Maya moved toward the sound, her hand resting on her weapon, but not drawing it, Because sometimes the fastest way to end a conversation was to pull a gun, and sometimes the fastest way to start a war was the same thing. She found them in the meeting room, standing on opposite sides of a table covered in old photographs and memorial plaques. Hank Morales, his face harder than it had sounded on the phone, his hands clenched at his sides. And across from him, Colonel Marcus Webb. Webb looked exactly like his photographs, late 60s, silver haircut, military short, a face that had been handsome once and was now just carved. He wore a simple jacket and jeans, nothing that would identify him as the man who'd testified before Congress or stood beside presidents. But his posture gave him away. The straight spine, the squared shoulders, the bearing of a man who'd spent 40 years being obeyed. His eyes found Maya the moment she stepped through the door. "Agent Chen," he said, his voice carrying that particular timbre of command that made people stand straighter without meaning to. "I was hoping you'd come." "Were you hoping I'd come alone?" "I was hoping you'd come smart." Webb gestured to a chair. "Sit. We don't have much time, and there are things you need to understand before you decide what happens next."
Maya didn't sit. "What I understand is that you've been running a fraud operation that's stolen millions from veterans and their families. What I understand is that you set a trap for Ethan Cross because he got too close. What I understand is that you're threatening Lila Brennan's son to keep her quiet." "All true," Webb said simply. "And also incomplete." Hank's voice cut in, rough with anger and something that sounded like grief. "Marcus, shut up! Don't say another word without a lawyer." "I don't need a lawyer, Hank. I need a witness." Webb's gaze stayed on Maya. "Because what I'm about to tell you is going to sound like a confession, and in some ways it is. But it's also an offer. I don't make deals with criminals. You make deals with reality, Agent Chen, and the reality is that if you arrest me tonight, if you shut down Ironclad, you'll be condemning 247 veterans and their families to immediate financial collapse. Medical treatments they can't afford will stop. Rent they can't pay will go unpaid. Funerals that haven't happened yet won't happen at all." Maya's jaw tightened. "You don't get to hold them hostage." "I'm not holding anyone hostage. I'm telling you what the math says. Ironclad has active commitments to people who need help right now, today, this week. If the money stops flowing, they suffer. Not because I want them to, because the system that was supposed to catch them has already failed." "Then give me the files. Give me the names. Let me transition them to legitimate services." Webb smiled, and it was the saddest thing Maya had seen all day. "You think the VA moves fast enough to save a diabetic who needs insulin tomorrow? You think emergency services can process a funeral cost claim before the body's been in the ground for a week? I know you want to believe the system works, Agent Chen, but I've spent 4 years watching it fail the same people over and over. My organization isn't perfect, but it's there. It answers the phone. It moves money when it needs to move. It doesn't ask veterans to prove they deserve help 20 different ways before admitting they're worthy of compassion. That doesn't make what you're doing legal." "No, it doesn't. And I'm not asking you to forgive me or look the other way. I'm asking you to be strategic." Webb pulled a phone from his pocket and set it on the table between them. That device contains account access for every dollar Ironclad has moved, every shell company, every crypto wallet, every transaction. You take it, you take me, and you transition the legitimate operations to someone who can keep them running legally. The veterans get help. You get your arrest. Justice happens, but it doesn't happen at their expense. Maya stared at the phone. "And if I say no? Then I walk out of here, you chase me, and by the time you catch me, if you catch me, every account will be emptied, Every record will be encrypted beyond recovery, and 247 people will wake up tomorrow with their lifelines cut.
Webb's voice didn't rise, but it hardened. I built contingencies, Agent Chen. Dead man switches on systems you won't find in time. I'm not bluffing. Atlas growled, low and certain, his eyes fixed on Webb with the intensity of a predator recognizing prey. Your dog doesn't trust me, Webb said quietly. That's smart. I'm not trustworthy. I'm a criminal who justified theft by wrapping it in service. But I'm also the only thing standing between a lot of broken people and complete abandonment. So you decide, Agent Chen. Do you want to be right, or do you want to help them? Maya's hand moved toward the phone, then stopped.
How do I know you're telling the truth? How do I know this isn't another manipulation?
You don't. You take a leap of faith, which is what every veteran does when they trust the government to keep its promises. Webb's eyes held hers. I'm giving you the same choice I gave them. Believe or walk away. The door behind Maya opened. Footsteps. She turned to find Lila Brennan standing in the doorway, her blue uniform still perfect, her face pale and tight with an emotion Maya couldn't quite name. Don't do it, Lila said, her voice shaking. Don't trust him. He's been lying to all of us from the beginning. Webb's expression didn't change. Lila, I was wondering when you'd arrive. You knew she'd come? Maya's hand moved to her weapon. I called her, Webb said calmly, because she deserves to know the truth too. About her son. About what I've really been protecting him from. Lila's face went white. What are you talking about? Jake's unit wasn't threatened by external actors, Lila. They were threatened by their own command. Logistics fraud, supply chain corruption, officers selling equipment to insurgents and pocketing the profit. I found out 6 months ago when I was consulting on veteran benefit processing. I sent Jake evidence, told him to go to CID, promised him I'd protect his family if he did the right thing. You're lying. I'm not. And Jake knows it, which is why he hasn't contacted you in 3 weeks. He's in protective custody, working with military investigators, helping them build a case against his commanding officer. I didn't threaten your son, Lila. I saved him. Webb's voice softened. But I let you believe I was the threat, because I needed you scared enough to help me. I needed access to dispatch records, emergency routes, real-time location data, and I knew the only way you'd give me that was if you thought Jake's life depended on it. Lila's legs buckled. She caught herself on the doorframe, her face crumpling. You used me. I did, and I'm sorry, but Jake's alive because of it, and he's about to help take down a corruption ring that's gotten Marines killed. That's worth your hatred. Maya's mind was racing, trying to sort truth from performance, trying to find the lie in Webb's words, and coming up empty because everything he'd said matched the fragments Derek had found, the patterns that didn't quite fit the profile of a simple fraud. Her phone buzzed. Derek's message was 2 words. He's clean. Then another message, longer. Cross-referenced Webb's data with military records. His story about Jake Brennan checks out. CID has him in witness protection. Unit command under investigation for UCMJ violations. Webb's been feeding them intel for 6 months. Maya's world tilted. You're not just a thief, she said slowly. You're running an off-books operation. I'm running the operation that should exist, Webb corrected. The one that actually helps veterans, instead of processing them through bureaucracy until they give up or die. Is it illegal? Yes. Is it necessary? Ask the families I've kept housed and fed while the VA processes their claims for 18 months. Hank spoke up, his voice rough. He came to me 3 years ago, Maya, Asked if I knew veterans who'd been denied help they deserved. I gave him names, good people who'd served honorably and been abandoned. He helped every single one. I didn't ask where the money came from because I didn't want to know. But I knew it was working.
That's conspiracy, Maya said. That's triage.
Hank's eyes were steady. You want to arrest me too, I understand. But don't pretend the system I bypassed was working. Maya looked at the phone on the table, at Webb's calm face, at Lila's shattered expression, at Atlas, whose growl had faded into watchful silence. She picked up the phone. I'm taking this, I'm taking you, and I'm going to verify every single claim you've made. If you're lying, if this is another layer of manipulation, I will make sure you never see daylight again. Fair enough. Webb held out his wrists. But Agent Chen, before you cuff me, there's one more thing you should know. Ethan Cross didn't stumble into my operation by accident. I recruited him. The room went silent. Ethan's been helping me identify fraud within the fraud. Veterans claiming benefits they don't need, people exploiting Ironclad the same way they exploit the VA. He's been my auditor for 8 months. The trap wasn't meant to kill him. It was meant to make him credible when he testified. A victim has more weight than a willing participant. Maya's hand froze halfway to her cuffs.
You set the trap.
Ryan Sloan set the trap, under my orders. Ethan knew it was coming. He agreed to it because he believed in what we were doing. Webb's voice stayed level.
Check his medical records. Check the placement of his injuries. Everything was calculated to injure but not kill. We needed you to find him. We needed you to trust him. We needed his testimony to have the weight of trauma behind it.
That's insane. That's commitment. Webb's eyes held hers. We're not your enemies, Agent Chen. We're your assets. And if you're smart, you'll use us instead of burying us. Maya's radio crackled. Backup arriving, asking for her position. She had 30 seconds to decide. Trust the criminal who claimed to be a crusader, or trust the system that had failed the people he was trying to help. Atlas pressed against her leg, his warmth steady and certain. She made the call. Maya's finger hovered over the radio button, every instinct she'd been trained to follow screaming at her to call in backup and end this. But another voice, quieter and older, whispered that some truths didn't fit inside handcuffs. Stand down, she said into the radio.
False alarm. Suspect not on premises. Resume perimeter patrol.
The response came back confused but compliant. Webb's eyebrows rose slightly, the first crack in his controlled facade. That's either the smartest decision you've made tonight, or the one that ends your career, he said.
Both, probably.
Maya lowered the radio.
But I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because I need to know if Ethan Cross is a victim or a co-conspirator. And I can't figure that out with you in custody and him sedated in a hospital bed.
Then let's go ask him.
You're not going anywhere near that hospital.
Then you'll never get the truth. Webb's voice stayed maddeningly calm. Ethan won't talk to you without my permission. He's been trained to resist interrogation by people far more experienced than FBI fraud investigators. But he'll talk to me, and you can listen. Lila's voice cut through, raw and shaking.
Don't trust him, Agent Chen.
Everything he says sounds reasonable until you realize you've been manipulated into doing exactly what he wanted. She's right, Webb said. I am manipulating you. The question is whether I'm manipulating you toward the truth or away from it. Maya's jaw tightened.
Hank, I need you to make a choice, right now. Are you with him or with me?
Hank Morales looked older than he had an hour ago, the weight of complicity aging him in real time.
I'm with the veterans who needed help and got it. If that makes me guilty, then I'm guilty. But I won't apologize for keeping families housed and fed while bureaucrats shuffled paper. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I've got. Hank's eyes met hers. You want me to wear a wire? Testify against Marcus? I'll do it. But only if you promise me those 247 people don't suffer because we decided to be righteous. Maya's phone buzzed.
Dear again. His messages coming faster now as he dug deeper into the data Webb had supposedly provided. Maya, the crypto wallets check out. Outbound transactions match claimed charitable disbursements. Medical bills, funeral costs, rent payments, all legit. But there's something else. Inbound transactions from sources I can't trace. Dark web exchanges, offshore accounts, money coming in that doesn't match veteran donations. Her pulse quickened. She typed back, "How much?" Millions. Someone's been funding Ironclad with serious capital, and it's not coming from gift cards and GoFundMe campaigns. She looked up at Webb. Who's your real backer? His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. That's the conversation we need to have at the hospital. With Ethan. Because the answer to that question is why he agreed to hang from a tree in a blizzard. Atlas growled again, his body tense with warning that felt less like threat assessment and more like prophecy. Maya made a decision that tasted like ash. You come with me. Hands where I can see them. Lila, you're coming too. Hank, you stay here and you don't contact anyone. If I find out you've warned someone we're coming, I'll charge you with obstruction so fast your head will spin. Understood. They moved to Maya's vehicle in silence, Webb in the back seat with his hands resting calmly on his knees, Lila in front with her face turned toward the window, her reflection ghostly against the dark glass. Atlas sat between them, his attention divided like a guard watching two prisoners, who might both be innocent or both be guilty. The drive to the hospital took 12 minutes that felt like hours. Maya's radio stayed quiet. Derek's messages kept coming, each one peeling back another layer of the operation, until the shape of it started to look less like fraud and more like something she didn't have a name for yet. Webb, she said without taking her eyes off the road. The money you're moving through Ironclad, it's not all theft, is it? No. Then what is it? It's restitution. His voice carried a weight that made Lila turn from the window. 4 years ago, a defense contractor called Sentinel Logistics won $1 billion contract to supply forward operating bases in Afghanistan. They cut corners, delivered substandard equipment, pocketed the difference. 57 American service members died because of faulty gear that Sentinel knew was faulty. The company paid a fine, restructured, and kept operating. No one went to jail. Maya's hands tightened on the wheel. What does that have to do with Ironclad? Everything. Because Sentinel's CEO, Richard Voss, is also a major donor to veteran charities. Guilt money, PR rehabilitation, whatever you want to call it. He gives millions to organizations like Ironclad to clean his conscience and his reputation. Webb's voice went cold. I take his donations. I use some of it for legitimate help, and I siphon the rest into accounts that fund investigations into contractors like him. Private investigators, whistleblower support, legal funds for families suing defense companies. I'm bleeding him dry the same way he bled our people dry. Lila's voice was barely a whisper. That's insane. That's justice when the courts won't deliver it. As of 6 hours ago, the organization is under federal investigation by someone other than you. She showed Webb the message. His face went pale. That's not possible. Voss doesn't know what I'm doing with his money. He thinks it's going to help veterans. Or he found out and decided to burn you before you could expose him. Maya's voice was tight.
When were you going to tell me someone else was investigating? I didn't know. For the first time, Webb sounded rattled. I've been careful. Every transaction is layered, every shell company insulated. Unless... He stopped. His eyes went wide. Unless Ethan talked. Ethan's been sedated since... Not to you. To whoever visited him before Sloan did. Webb leaned forward. Check the hospital footage again, before the man in scrubs. Was there anyone else? Maya's fingers flew across her phone, pulling up the timeline Derek had sent.
She scrubbed backward, past Sloane's visit, past the nurse doing vitals, past the orderly delivering dinner. There. 2 hours before Ethan's panic attack. A visitor, in civilian clothes, face clearly visible on camera, entering Ethan's room with a bouquet of flowers, and leaving 8 minutes later. She zoomed in on the face, and felt the case explode into something she couldn't contain. Richard Voss. In person. At a small-town Wyoming hospital, visiting a man he had no public connection to. He knew, Maya breathed. Voss knew Ethan was your auditor. Webb's face had gone gray. If Voss visited Ethan personally, he didn't come to threaten him. He came to recruit him. Recruit him for what? To testify against me. To flip the script and make me the villain while Voss plays the victimized philanthropist who trusted the wrong veteran charity. Webb's voice shook. Ethan wouldn't do that. He knows what we're trying to accomplish. You said yourself he's been trained to resist interrogation. What if he's been trained to switch sides when the price is right? Lila spoke up, her voice steadier now. Or what if he was never on your side to begin with? The hospital came into view, its windows glowing like eyes watching their approach. Maya parked in the emergency bay, ignoring the no parking signs, and led them inside with Atlas at her heel and her weapon loose in its holster. Dr. Delacroix met them at the entrance, her face tight with professional concern that looked like it was masking something sharper. Agent Chen, I need to speak with you. Privately. Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of them. The doctor's eyes flicked to Webb, then back to Maya. Commander Cross woke up 20 minutes ago. He's agitated, insisting he needs to leave. I can't legally hold him, but I'm concerned about his mental state. Is he coherent? Too coherent. That's what worries me. Doctor, Delacroix lowered her voice. He asked me to deliver a message to you. Said to tell you that the rabbit hole goes deeper than you think, and if you want the truth, you need to check the flowers. Maya's stomach dropped. What flowers? The ones that visitor brought him earlier. Ethan had me throw them away, so they made him sick. But when I went to dispose of them, I found something tucked inside the arrangement. A phone. Burner, brand new, with one message already loaded. Where is it? Security lockup. I thought it might be evidence. Maya ran. Webb and Lila followed, Atlas leading the way like he knew exactly where they were going. The security office was a cramped room staffed by a single guard who looked startled when 4 people and a German shepherd burst through his door. The phone from Cross's room, Maya said, flashing her badge. I need it now. The guard fumbled with the lockbox, his hands shaking enough that it took 2 tries to get the key in. He handed Maya a sealed evidence bag containing a cheap flip phone, the kind you bought at gas stations with cash and threw away after one call. She powered it on. The message was already open, waiting like a trap. Commander Cross, we know what Webb has been doing. We know you've been helping him steal from the very people he claims to protect. But we also know you're a good man caught in a bad situation. Come work for us. Help us expose Webb's operation. In return, we'll make sure the court sees you as a victim, not a co-conspirator.
You have 24 hours to decide. The flowers are a gesture of good faith. Destroy this phone after reading. Voss. Maya's hands were shaking. He's been trying to flip Ethan from the beginning. And Ethan's been playing him, Webb said quietly. Or Ethan's been playing me. I'm not sure which anymore. They moved to Ethan's room in a tight group, Maya in front, weapon drawn now because nothing about this felt safe.
She pushed the door open and found the bed empty, IV lines disconnected and hanging like the severed strings of a puppet. On the pillow, written in black marker on a hospital pillowcase, were 4 words. Trust no one. Not even me. Atlas barked once, sharp and urgent, his nose pointing toward the window that was open again, cold air pouring in, curtains billowing like ghosts trying to escape. Maya ran to the window and looked out. Tire tracks in the fresh snow, leading away from the hospital toward the mountain roads that could take someone anywhere if they had enough head start. Her radio crackled. County dispatch, voice tense. All units, we have a reported vehicle pursuit on Route 191 southbound. Black SUV, male driver matching Commander Ethan Cross description, driving erratically. Multiple units in pursuit. Maya's blood went cold. That's a setup. Cross isn't running from us. He's leading someone into a trap. Webb was already moving. Voss wouldn't come alone. If he's been building a case against me, he's got private security, maybe contractors. If they catch Ethan before we do, they'll kill him and make it look like a car accident, Lila finished. Her face had gone pale. That's how they work. I've seen it before in Syria. Contractors don't arrest targets. They eliminate them. Maya grabbed her radio. This is Special Agent Chen, FBI. I need immediate air support on Route 191. Possible civilian in danger. Armed pursuit in progress. Authorization code. The radio died. Not static, not interference. Just dead. Like someone had cut the signal at the source. Derek's message came through on her phone, his words appearing in real time as he typed. Maya, someone just hit the county dispatch center with a targeted cyber attack. All emergency communications are down. You're on your own. Webb's voice was steady despite the chaos. Voss is cleaning house. He's going to kill Ethan, kill me if he can, and make it look like a criminal enterprise that collapsed violently. You'll be the FBI agent who arrived too late to save anyone. Not if we get to Ethan first. Maya was already running, Atlas beside her, Lila and Webb following. They hit the parking lot at full speed, piled into Maya's vehicle, and she punched the accelerator hard enough to make the tires scream against ice. The pursuit took them up into the mountains where the snow was falling harder and the roads were sheets of frozen malice waiting to kill anyone who drove too fast or turned too hard. Maya's hands were locked on the wheel, her eyes tracking the taillights ahead that appeared and disappeared in the white like a dying heartbeat. There, Lila said, pointing. That's not Ethan. That's a pursuit vehicle. Professional driver. She was right. The SUV ahead was moving with the controlled aggression of someone trained in tactical driving, someone who knew these roads, or didn't care about survival. Maya's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered on speaker. Ethan's voice, breathless and scared in a way that sounded real. Maya, don't follow me. This isn't what you think. I'm not running from you. I'm running too. Gunfire cut him off. The sharp crack of automatic weapons echoing across the mountains, audible even through the phone and the storm. Ethan! Maya shouted. They're trying to push me off the road. If I stop, they'll kill me. If I keep going... His voice broke. There's a roadblock ahead. County vehicles, but they're not county. Voss has people inside the system. He's had them for years. Webb leaned forward. Ethan, listen to me. You need to... I know what I need to do, Colonel. I've always known. Ethan's voice steadied. "Tell Agent Chen to check the USB drive again. The real one, not the one I gave her. The one I mailed to her office 3 days ago. That's where the truth is. Everything Voss has done, everyone he's bought, it's all there." Maya's mind raced. "What are you talking about? The drive you gave me was bait. To make Voss think I was still loyal to Webb. The real evidence is in a package addressed to you at the FBI field office in Denver. Tracking number is written on the inside of Atlas's collar. Left side, under the patch. Atlas. The dog who'd led her to Ethan in the first place. The dog who'd never stopped watching. Never stopped protecting." Maya's hands found the collar while she drove one-handed, her fingers locating the hidden seam Ethan had described. Inside, written in permanent marker on the leather, a tracking number and a date. The date was tomorrow. The package hadn't even been delivered yet. Ahead, the roadblock appeared through the snow. 3 vehicles, county markings, but the men standing beside them wore tactical gear that didn't match any department uniform Maya recognized. Ethan's SUV didn't slow. If anything, it accelerated, heading straight for the center vehicle like a missile that had locked onto its target. "He's going to ram them," Lila breathed. "No," Webb said. "He's going to make them choose between shooting a decorated veteran on camera or letting him through. And if they shoot, he's betting Maya will have enough evidence to bury them." Maya's throat closed. "There are no cameras up here." "Yes, there are." Webb pulled out his phone, showing her a live feed. "I've been streaming everything since we left the VFW. 3,000 viewers and counting. If they kill him, the world watches." The roadblock scattered. Men diving for cover, weapons raised but not firing, caught between orders and optics. Eaton's SUV crashed through the gap they'd left, sideswiping one vehicle hard enough to send it spinning. Then he was past them, disappearing into the storm again, his taillights fading like hope. Maya floored it, following through the same gap, her vehicle shuddering as she clipped the damaged county car. The men at the roadblock shouted, raised weapons, but didn't fire. Not yet. Her phone rang again. Different number. Richard Voss himself, his voice smooth and cultured and utterly without remorse. "Agent Chen, I believe you're in possession of stolen property. I'd like it back." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Colonel Webb. He's a fugitive and a thief. You're harboring him. That makes you an accessory." Voss's voice never rose, never wavered. "I have 17 attorneys ready to file complaints against you. I have media contacts ready to run stories about FBI corruption. And I have men on those mountains who will do what's necessary to protect my interests. Give me Webb, and this ends quietly." Maya's voice went cold. "Or what?" "Or Commander Cross dies, and it's your fault for not stopping him when you had the chance." The line went dead. Ahead, Ethan's taillights vanished around a curve. Maya followed, tires fighting for grip on ice that didn't care about urgency or justice or the desperate math of saving one life versus exposing a conspiracy. When she came around the bend, she found Ethan's SUV stopped sideways across the road. Driver's door open, engine still running. Empty. Atlas erupted from the vehicle before Maya could stop him, his nose hitting the ground, tracking a scent that led off the road and into the trees, where the darkness was absolute and the snow was deep enough to swallow a man whole. Maya followed, with her flashlight cutting white tunnels through the black, Webb and Lila behind her, all of them running towards something they couldn't see, but knew was there. They found him 50 yards in, standing at the edge of a cliff that dropped into nothing, his hands raised, his face calm, despite the 3 armed men surrounding him with rifles pointed at his chest. The man in front spoke with the flat professionalism of someone who'd killed before and would kill again. "Commander Cross, Mr. Voss would like a word. You can come willingly, or you can fall. Either way, this ends tonight." Ethan's eyes found Maya. He smiled, and it was the saddest, most certain expression she'd ever seen. "Check the package, Agent Chen. Make sure the truth survives." Then he stepped backward into the dark. Maya's scream tore through the night as she lunged forward, but Webb's hand caught her arm with iron strength, yanking her back from the cliff edge where Ethan had just disappeared into darkness that swallowed sound and hope in equal measure.
"Let me go!"
She fought against his grip, her flashlight beam cutting wild arcs through falling snow, searching for something, anything, that would tell her Ethan hadn't just chosen death over capture.
"Wait,"
Webb hissed.
"Listen."
The armed men were shouting, running to the cliff edge, their rifle lights stabbing downward into the abyss. But there was no sound of impact, no cry of a man hitting rock or water or the frozen ground far below. Just wind and the harsh breathing of people trying to understand what they'd witnessed. Atlas barked once, sharp and insistent, then bolted along the cliff line toward a cluster of trees 20 yards south. Maya wrenched free from Webb and followed, her boots sliding on ice, her heart hammering against her ribs like it was trying to escape the implications of what Ethan had done. She found him clinging to the trunk of a pine that grew sideways from the cliff face, his body pressed against bark and snow, his breathing ragged but controlled. He jumped sideways, not backward, using the darkness and the angle to create an illusion of suicide, while actually catching himself on terrain the armed men couldn't see from their position.
"You insane son of a—"
Maya's voice broke between fury and relief.
"Had to sell it,"
Ethan gasped. His hands were shaking, fingers white where they gripped the tree.
"They needed to think I'd rather die than talk. Gives us maybe 2 minutes before they figure out I'm not at the bottom."
Lila appeared beside Maya, her face pale.
"Can you climb back up?" "Not without them seeing me."
Ethan's eyes met Maya's.
"You have to go. Get that package. Everything Voss has done, everyone he's bought, it's documented. Bank records showing payments to county officials, dispatch supervisors in 4 states, even some federal agents. He's been building his protection network for a decade."
The words hit Maya like physical blows.
"Federal agents? How many?" "At least 3 that I found, maybe more."
That's why I couldn't go through normal channels. That's why I needed Webb's off-book operation to have any chance of exposing this without getting killed. Ethan's grip on the tree shifted, his boot finding purchase on a narrow ledge. Voss isn't just a defense contractor covering his crimes. He's a cancer in the system, and the only cure is sunlight. Voices above them, sharp commands, the sound of men realizing their target hadn't fallen far enough to die. Webb's hand touched Maya's shoulder. "We need to move. Now."
"I'm not leaving him."
"You have to." Ethan's voice carried the weight of a man who'd already made his peace with hard choices. They want Webb alive to use as leverage against his network. They want you discredited so your investigation falls apart. But me? I'm just a loose end. If you stay, they'll kill all of us and bury the evidence with our bodies." Atlas whined, his body tense with the conflicting instincts of a dog trained to protect, but smart enough to recognize when protection meant retreat. Maya's mind raced through options that all tasted like failure. Then her phone buzzed, Derek's message arriving like a lifeline thrown from miles away. "Package arrived early. Courier flagged it as priority and delivered to Denver field office an hour ago. SAC Morrison has it. She's calling you in 5 minutes." Special Agent in Charge Rebecca Morrison, Maya's supervisor, a woman with 30 years in the Bureau and a reputation for protecting her agents even when it cost her politically. If Morrison had the evidence, if she believed it, then maybe Ethan's sacrifice wouldn't be for nothing.
Derek got the package, Maya said, her voice steadying. My SAC has it. If you documented everything you said you did, then Voss is finished, and so are the people protecting him.
Ethan's smile was grim. But only if you get out of here alive to testify to what you saw tonight, to what I told you, to what Webb confirmed. The flashlight beams were getting closer, voices coordinating, the net tightening. Maya made the call.
Atlas, come.
The dog hesitated, looking back at Ethan with an expression that managed to convey both loyalty and betrayal.
It's okay, boy, Ethan said softly. Take care of her. She's going to need you more than I do right now.
They ran. Back through the trees, back to the road where Maya's vehicle waited with its engine still running and its doors flung open like the arms of someone who'd given up trying to hold anything together. Webb dove into the passenger seat, Lila into the back, Atlas between them, and Maya behind the wheel with her hands shaking so hard she nearly couldn't shift into gear. She did anyway. Because that's what you did when people were counting on you. You shook and you drove and you prayed that competence could substitute for certainty. The road back down the mountain was a nightmare of switchbacks and black ice, and the constant fear that headlights would appear behind them with the cold intention of making sure no one reached civilization with stories to tell. But the headlights never came. Either Voss's men were still searching for Ethan, or they'd decided 3 targets escaping was preferable to a firefight that would draw attention they couldn't control. Maya's phone rang. Sack Morrison, her voice carrying the controlled anger of a woman who'd just read something that rewrote her understanding of her own organization.
Agent Chen, where are you right now? 30 miles outside Cascade Ridge, pursuing leads in the Ironclad investigation. Pursuing leads, or running for your life?
Maya's throat tightened.
Both, ma'am. I just spent the last hour reading documents that Commander Ethan Cross mailed to this office.
Financial records, audio recordings, email chains, evidence of corruption that spans multiple agencies and implicates people I've worked with for years. Morrison's voice went quiet, the kind of quiet that precedes thunder. Please tell me you can corroborate what's in this package.
Every word. I have witnesses. I have Webb, the man running Ironclad. I have Lila Brennan, a dispatch supervisor Voss was using as an asset. And I have my own observations of a coordinated effort to kill Cross and silence the investigation.
Then you need to get to the Denver field office immediately. Don't stop. Don't trust local law enforcement. Don't communicate over any channel that isn't encrypted. Voss has reach, Chen. More than we understood.
How bad is it?
Morrison hesitated, and that hesitation told Maya everything she needed to know about how deep the rot went. We're talking about compromised personnel in at least 4 field offices, judges who've ruled in Voss's favor on questionable evidence. A network that's been active for over a decade, protecting defense contractors from accountability while American service members died using equipment those contractors knew was defective. Maya's hands tightened on the wheel.
The 57 casualties Webb mentioned. That was just one contract?
That was just the ones we can prove. Cross's documentation suggests there are others, incidents that were ruled accidental or attributed to enemy action when they should have been attributed to criminal negligence. Morrison's voice hardened. This is bigger than fraud, Agent Chen. This is institutional betrayal. And you're now the primary witness to an ongoing conspiracy to obstruct justice.
What about Cross? He's still on that mountain. Voss's contractors have him surrounded.
I'm coordinating a tactical response with people I trust. But Chen, you need to understand something. If Cross dies before we can extract him, He becomes a martyr whose documentation carries even more weight. Voss knows that, which means he's going to try to flip Cross, to make him recant, to destroy the credibility of the evidence before we can use it. Ethan won't flip. Everyone flips if you find the right pressure point. Morrison's tone wasn't cruel, just experienced. Get to Denver. We'll handle the extraction. You focus on staying alive. The call ended. Maya's eyes met Webb's in the rearview mirror. She's right, he said quietly. Voss will offer Ethan everything. Money, protection, a new life. And if that doesn't work, he'll threaten everyone Ethan cares about. The man's been doing this for years. He knows how to break people. Ethan's not people, Lila said from the back seat. Her voice carried a conviction that surprised Maya. I watched him with the veterans he guides, watched him sit with men who were broken by war and PTSD and loss, and he never once looked away from their pain. He never once pretended it would be okay when it wouldn't be. That kind of honesty doesn't flip. It endures, or it dies. Maya wanted to believe her, wanted to believe that integrity was armor against the kind of pressure Voss could apply. But she'd seen too many good people make bad choices when the alternative was watching someone they loved suffer. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She answered on speaker, expecting Voss's smooth threats or Ethan's desperate last words. Instead, she heard Ryan Sloan, the Marine who'd visited Ethan in the hospital, whose voice carried the weight of someone calling from a decision they couldn't take back. Agent Chen, I'm at the cliff. Cross is gone. Maya's heart stopped. What do you mean, gone? I mean, he's not on that tree anymore. The contractors rappelled down to grab him, but by the time they reached the ledge, he'd already moved. There's a trail leading into the ravine, fresh footprints, blood on the rocks. He's wounded but mobile, and he's heading toward the old mining complex at Devil's Creek. Webb leaned forward. That's 15 miles through wilderness in a blizzard. He'll die of exposure before he gets halfway. Not if he's got the gear I left for him 3 days ago. Sloane's voice carried a bitter satisfaction. You weren't the only one preparing for contingencies, Colonel. I've been stashing supplies at that mine since Webb first told me what Voss was really doing. Food, water, first aid, cold weather gear, and a satellite phone with one number programmed into it. A reporter in D.C. who's been investigating defense contractor fraud for years. If Cross reaches that phone, if he makes that call, Voss's lawyers won't be able to contain the story. Maya's mind raced. Why are you telling me this? You work for Webb. I work for the truth. Webb gave me purpose when the Corps threw me away, but he also taught me that purpose without principle is just another kind of corruption. Sloane paused. I'm done watching good people destroy themselves to fight bad people. I'm choosing a different path, one that doesn't require anyone to hang from trees or jump off cliffs. Where are you now? Heading to Devil's Creek. If Cross is going to make it, he'll need help. And if Voss's contractors are going to try to stop him, they'll need to go through me first. The line went dead before Maya could respond. She looked at Webb, whose face had gone pale with an emotion she couldn't quite name. Pride, maybe. Or grief for the man he'd recruited, and the mission that was consuming everyone who touched it. Sloane's going to get himself killed, Webb said flatly. Maybe. Or maybe he's going to do what the rest of us should have done from the beginning. Trust the system to work if we give it the right information. The system is what failed us in the first place. No, Maya said, her voice sharp with a clarity that had been building since she'd cut Ethan down from that tree. People failed us. People who chose money over duty, who chose comfort over courage, who chose to look away when looking meant having to act. The system is just a framework. It works when we make it work. Lila spoke up from the back seat, her voice stronger than it had been all night.
My son is in Syria right now, risking his life because he believed in that framework. Because he thought doing the right thing mattered even when it was dangerous. If I stop believing that, if I decide the system is too broken to save, then what was his sacrifice for?
Maya's phone rang again. Derek, his voice tight with urgency. Maya, we have a problem. Someone just filed an emergency motion to seal Cross's evidence package. Federal judge, appointed 2 years ago, campaign funded largely by Sentinel Logistics. The motion claims the documents were obtained illegally and contain classified information that threatens national security.
Can they do that?
They're doing it right now. SAC Morrison is fighting back, but if the judge rules in Voss's favor, everything Cross documented becomes inadmissible. The investigation dies before it starts. Maya's vision narrowed to a single point of focus.
When's the hearing?
Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., Denver Federal Courthouse. Morrison wants you there to testify to the circumstances of how you obtained the evidence. She's betting that your first-hand account of Cross's attempted murder will convince the judge that Voss is trying to cover up crimes, not protect national security.
I'll be there.
Maya, there's more. The judge's clerk just leaked the plaintiff's witness list to a friend at the Post. Guess who's on it?
Maya's stomach dropped.
Who? Ethan Cross. They're claiming he's going to testify that Webb coerced him into fabricating evidence against Voss as part of a personal vendetta. That everything in the package is lies designed to destroy an innocent businessman. The world tilted. That's impossible. Cross is running for his life from Voss's contractors.
Or he's running toward them. Maya, what if this whole thing is theater? What if Cross has been working for Voss all along, and the cliff jump, the chase, all of it, was designed to make his testimony look reluctant and credible?
Maya's hands were shaking again.
No. I saw his face. I heard his voice. He's not lying.
Then someone's lying about him lying. And we have less than 12 hours to figure out which version is true. The highway stretched ahead, dark and endless. And Maya realized with sudden clarity that nothing about this case had been what it seemed. Every truth had a shadow. Every ally had a doubt. And somewhere on a frozen mountain, a Navy SEAL was either dying to protect the evidence that would bring down a killer, or performing the greatest con she'd ever witnessed. Webb's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. Stop the car.
What?
Stop the car, now. Maya pulled onto the shoulder, her heart hammering. Webb was already out, standing in the headlights with his hands raised, his face tilted toward the sky like he was listening to something only he could hear. They're tracking us, he said. Your phone, your vehicle, something. We should have hit Voss's second roadblock 10 miles ago. The fact that we haven't means they're not trying to stop us. They're following us. Lila's face went white.
Following us where?
To Denver, to the field office, to everyone Maya trusts. Webb's eyes met hers through the windshield. Voss doesn't need to kill us, Agent Chen. He just needs to know who your allies are, so he can neutralize them before the hearing. We're not escaping. We're leading him straight to the people who can stop him. Maya's phone buzzed, one final message from Derek, and this one made her blood turn to ice. Someone just accessed your personnel file from inside the Denver field office. They know where you live, where your family lives, everyone you've ever listed as an emergency contact. Maya, they're not just following you. They're building a target list. Atlas growled, his body going rigid, his eyes fixed on something in the darkness beyond the headlights. Maya followed his gaze and saw them. 3 sets of headlights, approaching from behind, moving with the coordinated precision of hunters who'd been pacing their prey all along. "Get in," she snapped at Webb. "We're not going to Denver." "Then where?" "Somewhere they won't expect. Somewhere off the grid." Maya's hands found the wheel again, found the certainty that came from running out of good options and having to make the bad ones work. "We're going to Devil's Creek." If Ethan's making a stand there, if Sloane's going to help him, then that's where this ends. All of us together, with the truth or without it. She punched the accelerator, leaving the highway for a service road that wound up into the mountains where cell signals died and backup never came, and the only law was the kind you carried in your holster and your heart. The vehicles behind them followed. Of course they did. Because Voss had already won every engagement by anticipating her moves before she made them. But he hadn't anticipated one thing. Maya Chen was done playing defense. Lila's voice was quiet from the back seat. "My son taught me something before he deployed. He said the only way to win against an enemy who's always 2 steps ahead is to stop running their race. You change the game. You make them react to you instead of you reacting to them." "Smart kid," Maya said. "He learned it from his commander, the one who taught him that honor isn't about following rules. It's about knowing which rules to break and when." Webb's laugh was bitter. "Sounds like someone I used to know, before he decided I was the enemy." "Maybe you both are," Maya said. "Maybe Voss is. Maybe the whole system is. But right now, the only thing I know for certain is that Ethan Cross jumped off a cliff rather than let the truth die with him. And I'm not going to waste that sacrifice by playing it safe." The road ahead disappeared into darkness and snow, and the absolute certainty that whatever waited at Devil's Creek would either save them all or bury them so deep that the truth became just another story people told themselves about heroes who tried and failed. Atlas's eyes never left the road ahead, watching for danger, watching for hope, watching for the moment when loyalty and duty became the same thing. Behind them, the headlights kept pace, patient and relentless as winter itself. The mining complex at Devil's Creek rose from the mountain like a skeleton that refused to stay buried. Maya killed the headlights 2 miles out and drove the final approach by moonlight and memory, her hands steady on the wheel, despite the fact that 3 vehicles were closing the distance behind them with the methodical patience of people who knew their prey had nowhere left to run. "How well do you know this place?" Webb asked, his voice tight with the controlled fear of a man who'd spent his career planning for contingencies and was now living through the one scenario he'd never prepared for. "I don't, but Ethan does." Maya's eyes scanned the darkness ahead, looking for any sign of movement, any indication that they weren't driving into an ambush. "He ran survival training exercises here for veterans, taught them how to operate in hostile territory with limited resources. If he made it this far, he knows every entrance, every hiding spot, every tactical advantage this place offers." "And if he didn't make it?" Maya didn't answer because the alternative wasn't something she could afford to consider. Not when Atlas was sitting rigid in the passenger seat with his ears forward and his body vibrating with the tension of a dog who'd caught a scent he recognized. Not when Lila was in the back seat checking the magazine on a pistol Maya hadn't known she was carrying. Not when everything they'd fought for tonight came down to whether one wounded SEAL had made it 15 miles through a blizzard to reach a phone that might not even work. Her radio crackled, static-filled and barely audible, but Derek's voice cut through the interference with the desperate urgency of someone who'd been trying to reach her for the last 20 minutes. "Maya, if you can hear me, S.A.C. Morrison just got word from the judge's chambers. The hearing's been moved up. 6 a.m. tomorrow instead of 9. Someone's pushing to seal that evidence before you can testify. Maya checked her watch. 4:17 in the morning. Less than 2 hours to get from this mountain to a federal courthouse in Denver, a drive that would take 3 hours even without a blizzard, and 3 vehicles full of armed contractors trying to stop her. The math didn't work. It never had. But math was what you did when you still believed in rules, and Maya had left rules behind the moment she'd watched Ethan Cross step backward into darkness, rather than let the truth die quietly. She grabbed the radio. "Derek, tell Morrison I'm not going to make that hearing, but I need you to do something for me. I need you to get a message to the reporter Sloan mentioned, the one investigating defense contractor fraud." "Already on it. Her name's Amanda Reese, Washington Post. She's been chasing the Sentinel logistics story for 3 years. But Maya, she can't publish without corroboration. Cross's documents aren't enough on their own. She needs a second source, preferably someone currently in law enforcement who can verify the chain of custody. Then she's got one. Tell her everything I told you. Tell her I'm a federal agent who witnessed attempted murder, corruption, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. Tell her my badge number, my supervisor's name, everything she needs to verify I'm real. And tell her if she doesn't publish in the next 2 hours, the people responsible for killing 57 American service members are going to walk away clean." "Maya, that's career suicide. Morrison can protect you if you follow procedure, but if you go to the press without authorization..." "I don't care about my career. I care about making sure what Ethan documented doesn't disappear into a classified vault where it can't hurt the people who need to be hurt." She ended the transmission before Derek could argue. Webb was staring at her with an expression that looked like respect mixed with the particular sorrow of someone watching another person cross a line they'd never be able to uncross. "You just burned every bridge you had," he said quietly. "Good. Bridges let you retreat. I'm done retreating." The mining complex loomed ahead, its main structure a collapsing shell of corrugated metal and rotted timber that looked like it would fall over if someone breathed on it too hard. But Maya had learned in the last 6 hours that appearances were weapons, and the most dangerous things often looked harmless until they killed you. She parked behind a pile of slag that would provide cover if shooting started, then turned to face Webb and Lila with the kind of clarity that comes from running out of clever plans and having to rely on the truth. "Here's how this works. I'm going in alone with Atlas. You two stay with the vehicle and watch our backs. If those contractors get past me, you run." You don't fight. You don't negotiate. You just run. And you keep running until you reach someone you trust. "And who exactly should we trust?" Lila's voice carried the exhaustion of someone who'd spent the night learning that everyone she'd believed in was either a liar or a victim. "You said yourself Voss has people inside the bureau, inside county dispatch, inside the courts. Who's left?" Morrison. Derek. The reporter, Amanda Reese. Maya met her eyes. And each other. That's all we've got, so it'll have to be enough. She stepped out into the cold with Atlas at her heel, leaving Webb and Lila in the vehicle with instructions to call for help if she wasn't back in 30 minutes. The wind had picked up, driving snow sideways with enough force to sting exposed skin, and Maya pulled her jacket collar higher as she approached the mine entrance with her weapon drawn and her senses screaming that she was walking into something that would either save them all or prove that heroism was just another word for well-intentioned suicide. Atlas stopped 10 feet from the entrance, his nose working the air, his body language shifting from alert to something that looked almost like relief. He'd found Ethan's scent. The man was here, alive, close enough that the dog could track him even through the storm. Maya pushed through the rusted door into darkness that smelled like old metal and older fear. Her flashlight cut through the black, revealing a tunnel that stretched deep into the mountain, with support beams that looked like they'd given up supporting anything decades ago. "Ethan," she called, her voice echoing off stone and emptiness. "It's Agent Chen." "If you can hear me, I'm here to help." Silence. Then a sound like someone shifting weight on gravel, trying to stay quiet and failing because pain makes silence impossible. She followed the sound deeper into the tunnel, Atlas leading now with the confidence of a dog who'd decided his handler was too slow and too human to do this efficiently. They found Ethan in a side chamber that had once been an equipment storage room and was now just a hole in the mountain filled with broken machinery and the shattered dreams of men who'd thought they could pull wealth from rock. He was sitting against the far wall with his leg extended at an angle that suggested injury, his face pale in the flashlight beam, his hands wrapped around a satellite phone that looked like it had seen better days, but was still blinking with a green light that meant signal, meant hope, meant the possibility of getting a message out before the mountain or the contractors or time itself ran out. "You shouldn't have come," he said, his voice rough with cold and pain, and something that sounded like gratitude despite the words. "This place is a kill box. They'll surround it and wait us out." "Then we don't wait." Maya crouched beside him, her hands already assessing his injuries with the clinical efficiency of someone who'd taken tactical medicine courses and learned that sympathy was what you felt after you'd stopped the bleeding. His leg was swelling badly, the ankle she'd cut down from the snare now twisted at an angle that made her stomach turn. "Can you walk?" "Not far. Not fast. Not well enough to matter." He lifted the satellite phone. "But I can talk. I already called Amanda Reese, gave her everything, names, dates, account numbers, testimony about what I witnessed. She's got enough to publish, but she's waiting on second source verification before she'll go to print." "Derek's working on that. He's giving her my statement as we speak." Ethan's eyes widened. "You went on record? Maya, that's the only thing that matters right now." She pulled a thermal blanket from her pack and wrapped it around his shoulders, ignoring his protests that she'd needed more. "Voss is trying to seal your evidence package. The hearing's been moved up to 6 a.m. If we don't get corroboration published before then, a federal judge is going to classify everything you documented and we'll never get another chance." "Then we're out of time." Ethan's hand tightened on the phone. "Reese needs one more source, someone inside Voss's operation who can confirm the payments, the corruption, the whole network. But everyone I identified is either bought or terrified. They won't talk." "What about Sloan? He said he was heading here to help you." "He's not here. Either he got stopped or he changed his mind or..." Ethan's face went tight. "Or he's the insurance policy Voss kept in reserve. The loyal Marine who'll testify that Webb and I fabricated everything as part of a vendetta." Maya's radio crackled, Webb's voice tense and controlled. "Jen, we've got company. 3 vehicles just pulled up at the perimeter. Armed men deploying, setting up a cordon. They're not rushing in. They're locking us down." "How long do we have?" "Until they decide waiting is more expensive than the optics of a firefight. Maybe an hour, maybe 10 minutes. Hard to say." Maya looked at Ethan, at the phone in his hands, at Atlas watching them both with eyes that held more wisdom than any human deserved to receive from an animal. She made a decision that felt less like choice and more like the only path forward when all the other paths had been wired with explosives. "Give me the phone." "What are you going to do?" "Something stupid. Something that'll either work or get us all killed. But I'm done being patient." She took the phone and dialed the number Derek had sent her earlier, the direct line to Amanda Reese's personal cell, the one reporters gave to sources they actually trusted. Reese answered on the second ring. "This is Amanda?" "This is Special Agent Maya Chen, FBI. You spoke with Commander Ethan Cross 20 minutes ago? I'm calling to provide second source verification of everything he told you." "Agent Chen, I need more than your word. I need documentation, official channels.
Something that proves you're not part of whatever conspiracy theory I'm about to publish. Then call SAC Rebecca Morrison at the Denver field office. Right now. Tell her I'm authorizing her to confirm my identity and my investigation. Tell her I'm invoking whistleblower protections under the Intelligence Community Whistleblower Protection Act. That'll put her in a legal position where she has to either confirm what I'm saying or lie under oath to protect Voss. A pause. The sound of typing.
That's a hell of a gamble, Agent Chen.
It's not a gamble if you know you're right.
Maya's voice steadied into something harder than fear, stronger than doubt.
Richard Voss has spent a decade building a protection network that's let him profit from sending American service members to war with defective equipment. He's corrupted federal agents, judges, local law enforcement. He's threatened families. He's ordered the attempted murder of a decorated Navy SEAL who got too close to the truth. And if you don't publish what Cross gave you in the next hour, Voss will seal that evidence in a federal hearing, and we'll never get another chance to stop him.
I'm calling Morrison now. If she confirms, I publish immediately. The line went dead. Maya handed the phone back to Ethan and stood, her legs shaking with exhaustion and adrenaline, and the bone-deep certainty that she'd just committed an act that would either save innocent lives or destroy her own.
Now what? Ethan asked.
Now we hold this position until either help arrives or they come through that door. And if they come through that door, we make sure they regret it. She moved back to the tunnel entrance where she could see the main chamber and the rusted door leading outside. Atlas took position beside her, his body low and ready, his training overriding his fear, because that's what good dogs did. They stayed when staying was the hard choice. Her radio crackled, Lila's voice, frightened but functional.
Maya, they're moving. 2 men heading toward the entrance, 3 more circling to the back. Webb says there's an old ventilation shaft that connects to this tunnel system. They might try to flank us.
Can you cover that approach?
We can try, but Maya, we're not trained for this. We're not soldiers.
Neither am I. But we're what we've got, so we make it work. Minutes crawled past with the agonizing slowness of time that knew it was running out. Maya's phone buzzed. Dear's message was 3 words that made her heart stop and restart. Morrison confirmed. Reese Publishing. She keyed her radio.
Webb, Lila, the story's going live. Everything cross-documented, everything I witnessed. It's about to hit the Washington Post website and every news feed in the country. We just need to stay alive long enough for it to matter.
And if it doesn't matter? Webb's voice carried the weariness of a man who'd bet everything on a system he didn't trust.
If Voss's lawyers kill the story, if the judge seals the evidence anyway, if we die in this mine for nothing,
then we die knowing we tried. That's more than most people get.
The door exploded inward with the sharp crack of a breaching charge, and suddenly the tunnel was full of smoke and noise and men with weapons who moved with the professional efficiency of contractors who'd done this work in a dozen countries where the rules of engagement were suggestions instead of laws.
Maya fired twice, aiming for center mass on the first man through the door, her training overriding her fear the way it was supposed to. The man went down hard, his weapon clattering on stone. The second man dove for cover, returning fire with controlled bursts that chipped rock inches from her head. Atlas lunged, not at the men but at their weapons, his training directing him to disarm rather than kill, because that's what the law required, and what his handler had taught him. His jaws closed on the barrel of the second man's rifle, wrenching it from trained hands with strength that came from breeding and purpose. Maya used the distraction to advance, her weapon steady, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd decided dying was acceptable, but surrender wasn't. "Federal agent, drop your weapons and get on the ground!" The men hesitated, not because they feared her, but because the tactical situation had changed. Through the smoke and chaos, Maya could hear sirens, real ones, close ones. The kind that meant someone with authority had decided this fight was about to become a crime scene instead of a cleanup operation. Her radio crackled. SAC. Morrison's voice, clear and hard as iron. Chen, this is Morrison. I've got tactical teams incoming, local law enforcement that I've personally vetted, and enough federal marshals to lock down that entire mountain. Voss's people are done. Stand down and let us handle the arrest. The contractors looked at each other, and in that moment of hesitation, Maya saw the calculation happen in real time. Continue the assault and face federal murder charges, or retreat and hope their lawyers could make this go away. They chose retreat. Smart choice. The only choice that let them see morning. As they withdrew, Maya lowered her weapon and felt something in her chest unclench for the first time in hours. Atlas pressed against her leg, his body still vibrating with adrenaline, but his eyes calm now, like he knew the worst was over. She moved back to Ethan's position and found him still conscious, still gripping that satellite phone like it was the only solid thing in a world that had tried very hard to kill him. "It's over," she said. "Is it?" His eyes held hers. "Or did we just start a war we're not ready to finish?" 6 hours later, Maya stood in the Denver field office conference room, watching Amanda Reese's story dominate every news channel. The headline was simple and devastating. Defense contractor corruption network exposed. FBI whistleblower details decade of fraud. Morrison appeared beside her, 2 cups of coffee in hand, her face carrying the exhausted satisfaction of someone who'd spent the night fighting battles on 3 fronts and had somehow won all of them. The judge dismissed the motion to seal. Cross's evidence is now part of the public record. Voss has been arrested, along with 14 others in his network. 3 federal agents, 2 judges, and enough local officials to keep internal affairs busy for years. And Ethan? Surgery went well. He'll walk again. Might even run if he's stubborn about physical therapy. Morrison handed her one of the coffee cups. He's asking for you. Says he needs to explain something before the lawyers tell him to shut up. Maya found Ethan in a hospital room that looked too clean and bright after the darkness of the mine. His leg was elevated, his face was less gray, and his eyes held something that looked almost like peace. "You did it," he said simply. "We did it. All of us. You, Webb, Sloan, Lila, even Atlas." Speaking of Atlas, Ethan's smile was soft. "He's a good dog. Saved my life more than once. I was wondering if you'd consider letting me adopt him when this is all over. I could use a partner who's honest about his intentions." Maya looked at the German shepherd who'd followed her into the room and was now sitting beside Ethan's bed with his head resting on the mattress. The dog's eyes moved between them, and Maya could swear he understood every word. "I think he's already made that choice for us," she said. "He tracked you through a blizzard, protected you in that mine, and hasn't left your side since we got you to the hospital. Some partnerships don't need paperwork. They just need recognition." 3 months later, Maya stood in a federal courtroom and watched Richard Voss receive a sentence of 37 years for fraud, conspiracy, and corruption. The families of the 57 service members who died because of Sentinel Logistics' defective equipment sat in the gallery, their faces carrying the weight of justice that came too late, but still meant something. Colonel Marcus Webb received 18 months for fraud and illegal financial operations, but the judge suspended most of it in recognition of the fact that his network had actually helped hundreds of veterans while exposing corruption that might never have been discovered otherwise. The law was complicated like that. Messy. Human. Lila Brennan received probation and community service. Her son came home from Syria 3 weeks later, honorably discharged after his testimony helped convict 4 officers in his chain of command. Ryan Sloan turned state's evidence and entered witness protection, his testimony crucial to dismantling what remained of Voss's network. And Maya Chen received both a formal reprimand for violating protocol and a commendation for exceptional bravery. Her career would never be the same, but she'd made her peace with that. Some things mattered more than promotions. She found Ethan outside the courthouse, Atlas at his side, the dog's coat glossy with health, and his eyes bright with the particular contentment of an animal who'd found his purpose. "How's the leg?" she asked. "Better. Turns out I'm stubborn about physical therapy," he smiled. "I'm starting a new program, wilderness therapy for veterans dealing with trauma and corruption-related PTSD. Turns out there's a lot of people who need help processing what happens when the system they trusted betrays them." "That sounds good. Healing." "It is. And I was wondering if you'd consider consulting on the program, teaching people how to rebuild trust when trust has been weaponized against them." Maya looked at Atlas, at Ethan, at the future they were offering her. It wasn't the career she'd planned. It wasn't the path she'd been trained to follow. But it was honest work in service of people who deserved better than what they'd been given. "I'll think about it," she said. Which meant yes, because in the end, that's what justice really was. Not the perfect outcome, not the clean resolution. Just the stubborn commitment to keep showing up, keep fighting, keep choosing the hard right over the easy wrong, until eventually, slowly, the world bent toward something better. Atlas barked once, his tail wagging with the certainty of a dog who knew his people had finally figured out what he'd understood all along. Truth doesn't need permission. It just needs witnesses willing to stand in the cold and cut down the innocent before winter takes them forever.